Welcome to Eagle Eye TV Sports' 2024 Auburn Football Special. My name is Vince Wolfram, and throughout this episode, we will walk you through every big game and moment covered by our hardworking reporters, building a compelling narrative of Auburn football this season. For most, the 2024 Auburn football campaign was a cascade of emotions. With head coach Hugh Freeze entering his sophomore season on the Plains, plenty of expectations were put into place. The Auburn community was preparing to rally behind this team as the fan base was starving for success long awaited, trusting Freeze's first season in the headset was a step towards something greater. Because here on the Plains, belief isn't just a word, it's truly a way of life. Belief in new faces, voices, and leaders was key because Auburn believed it was doubted by most before the season began. In the preseason, the Tigers were projected to finish 10th in the SEC. The 2024 season was the first since 1991 with no divisions in SEC football, so Auburn avoided its usual matchup against the typical Goliath-esque SEC West. With senior running back Jarquez Hunter, linebacker Eugene Asante, kick returner Keontae Scott, and sophomore kicker Alex McPherson each finding their names on preseason All-SEC teams, there was a swagger to this team knowing that they could be silent disruptors in the Southeastern Conference. As week one of the college football season showed face, the offseason excitement had reached its peak. It was time for college football. As the Bulldogs of Alabama A&M arrived on the Plains, it was the two-year starter under center Peyton Thorne and a group of permafrost playmakers called the Freeze Four that helped Auburn begin the season in ideal fashion.
It's kickoff on the Plains, and your Auburn Tigers, seeking their 800th program win, took on the Alabama A&M Bulldogs.
This game marks the start of head coach Hugh Freeze's second year on the Plains, but his first time facing the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs won the toss and chose to defer, but it did not take long for the Tigers' offense to get rolling. Senior running back and preseason All-SEC team member Jarquez Hunter put the Tigers on the board after a 34-yard touchdown. But the scoring didn't stop there. After the Tiger defense forced a 3-and-out, quarterback Peyton Thorne connected with Keandre Lambert-Smith on a 67-yard pass. Auburn's defense forced yet another punt that led to a 44-yard pass to freshman Cam Coleman, making the score 21-0. But the Bulldogs drove down the field to attempt a 29-yard field goal, and that kick ended wide right. And with 2 minutes left in the first, Thorne looked to Lambert-Smith one more time for a 4-yard pass from a 6-play drive. Fresh out of the first quarter in an Alabama A&M punt, Auburn marched down to the Alabama A&M 14-yard line with the help of a big return from Keontae Scott. The Tigers' Towns McGlow kicked it in for 3. Now the score is 31-0. Auburn continues to make big plays, and Peyton Thorne finds Perry Thompson on a 70-yard pass, which is good for 6. But the Bulldogs wouldn't remain shut out. After a big drive downfield, they were able to kick it in for 3 on a 43-yard attempt. Peyton Thorne was quick to respond with a 4-yard keeper, which was good for 6, making the score 45-3. And just 2 minutes later, running back Damari Alston scored on a hefty run to close out the half. But heading out of the half, the Tiger defense was on full display, forcing the Alabama A&M Bulldogs to punt once again. But this one was blocked by Auburn's Micah Riley, which was recovered by Malcolm Simmons in the end zone for another Auburn touchdown. The Tigers kept the ball rolling and finished the night scoring 2 more times with passes to Malcolm Simmons and Sam Jackson V from backup QB Hank Brown, making the final score 73-3. A statement win for Freeze and the Tigers in front of a sold-out Jordan-Hare crowd. Here's what head coach Hugh Freeze had to say about the Auburn Tigers' 800th program win.
I know it's Auburn's 800th victory. There's been a lot of great staffs, coaches, players that through the years have contributed to that, and we're happy to be a part of those 800 wins. I think we're only the 13th program in FBS to have that. So it puts you among the elite.
Next week, your Auburn Tigers are taking on the Cal Golden Bears at home. Reporting for Eagle Eye TV, I'm Chaz Kapfhammer.
While a 73-3 kickoff weekend win is hard to top, Peyton Thorne and company had the confidence to do just that. Just 1 year before, the Tigers had traveled to the Golden State of California to play the Cal Golden Bears. That game was won in the trenches, and Auburn jumped on the flight home with a number added in the win column. The hope remained the same heading into week 2 of the season, but this contest took a turn most did not see coming.
Shocked may be the perfect word to describe how Auburn fans are feeling right now. The Tigers came into the game today 2 touchdown favorites against California, and as the game went on, that hope dwindled. In the first quarter, Auburn, they look like the team that beat Alabama A&M by 70 last week. Peyton Thorne rolling out finds Keandre Lambert-Smith for a 15-yard touchdown to cap off an 8-play, 75-yard drive to put the Tigers up 7-0. Cal responded with the same. 8 plays, 75 yards. Fernando Mendoza to Naziah Hunter at the pylon. Touchdown, Golden Bears. From that point, Auburn's flight really struggled with turnover turbulence. Noel Williams with the interception here, taking it back to the Auburn 21-yard line. And Cal, they capitalized on the field position as Mendoza found Hunter in the end zone again, putting the Golden Bears up 14-7. After a scoreless third quarter, an Auburn turnover, and a 32-yard rushing touchdown from Cal's Javion Thomas with 11 minutes to play, California was up 2 scores, and Auburn fans appeared to be shaken up. 6 minutes left, clock ticking for Auburn. Peyton Thorne takes it in from 2 yards out, 21-14 California. Auburn managed to get the ball back 2 times to try to seal the game, but both times the plan went haywire. The defense had other ideas. Auburn finished the game with 5 total turnovers, 4 of those 5 being interceptions. Cal 21, Auburn 14. Here's head coach Hugh Freeze on his team's lackluster showing.
Disappointing. I thought, with hope we were further along. I knew this would be a good test for us, no matter what people said. They're a very senior-laden football team and play extremely hard and are well coached. But you cannot turn the ball over 5 times and expect to beat really anybody.
Auburn will be back in Jordan-Hare Stadium next Saturday to take on the New Mexico Lobos, a team that is hungry for a win after back-to-back losses to ranked Arizona and Montana State. From Jordan-Hare Stadium, I'm Vince Wolfram, Eagle Eye TV.
After the performance of Thorne turned blue against Cal, Hugh Freeze hoped the grass was greener on the side of redshirt freshman quarterback Hank Brown. The wide-eyed Golden Boy from Nashville looked to flip the script after the Week 2 California blunder against New Mexico during Auburn's homecoming weekend.
After a surprising loss last weekend at home to the California Golden Bears, Auburn fans look to see what changes will be made this weekend against the New Mexico Lobos in the annual homecoming game. New Mexico went on the board first with this field goal, but with help with a 66-yard kick return from Jeremiah Cobb, Camden Brown came in for the touchdown. Next up, running back Naqori Rogers from the Lobos answered with a touchdown. With Hank Brown as the starter this week, KLS then came in with this 50-yard grab that set the Tigers up for Jarquez Hunter's first touchdown of the game. The Lobos looked to answer that touchdown, but safety Jaron Thompson came in with a sick interception, marking Auburn's first interception on the season. This interception led to Sam Jackson V getting a 26-yard reception that ultimately led to a Towns-McGee field goal. New Mexico then answered right back with a field goal of their own. In Auburn's only punt of the game, freshman Malcolm Simmons came in for the tackle for a loss. Quarterback Devin Dampier then tried to get back in it with this 55-yard grab. Ultimately, though, this led to a missed field goal for the Lobos. Closing in on halftime was this 29-yard run by Damari Alston. With a score of 17-13 going into halftime, Jarquez Hunter came in for this 19-yard run that ultimately led into a fumble that was recovered by Auburn's Rivaldo Fairweather. This set up another Tiger touchdown with tight end Micah Riley getting the grab. Alabama transfer Antonio Kite then came up with Auburn's second interception of the night, running for 11 yards, which ultimately set up Jarquez Hunter's second touchdown of the night, making the score 31-13, closing in on the third quarter. New Mexico came back in the fourth quarter with this touchdown from Caleb Medford. However, tight end Rivaldo Fairweather had other plans, getting yet another Tiger touchdown. After a punt and a loss of down from the Lobos, freshman Perry Thompson set up yet another touchdown, this time from running back Damari Alston, sealing the deal for the Tigers. Here's what head coach Hugh Freeze had to say after the game.
We always celebrate wins. It's good to see some joy in the locker room. As a coach, you have to you look at everything with a critical view, but we should never forget to celebrate those.
Auburn takes the game 45-19 and will be back in Jordan-Hare Stadium next weekend to start SEC play against the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm Joleigh Cavanagh, Eagle Eye TV.
There has not been a year in the last decade where an SEC football schedule was easy. That truth remained true this go-around for Auburn. With quarterback questions looming and a defense that held its own through it all, the vibe of this Auburn team was in a teetering state. After dismantling New Mexico, Arkansas and Oklahoma were on the horizon. 2 games, both at Jordan-Hare Stadium, deemed as games Auburn could win. but were harrowing in the end.
Our SEC opener in Jordan-Hare Stadium was a roller coaster for the Tigers, with injuries, interceptions, and quarterback changes. Here's how the Tigers fared against the Razorbacks.
SEC play led the defense to step up. This first career sack from Dorian Massey led to Arkansas missing their 41-yard field goal attempt. Hank Brown looked like the hero from last Saturday with his first completion to Cam Coleman, returning from a shoulder injury. That was until he threw this interception on the opening drive. An injury from a key part of the defense, Champ Anthony, lit a fire under the Auburn defense, but was not enough to stop this rushing touchdown. Heartbreak occurred for the Tigers when Alston fumbled in the end zone after a 36-yard run. The next Auburn possession resulted in another interception, leading Auburn fans to feel deja vu. But Sylvester Smith dished it right back with an interception of his own. Rivaldo Fairweather caught this beautiful pass from Hank Brown for 25 yards. Unfortunately, the Tigers did not capitalize, and Hank Brown threw his third and final interception of the game as there was a quarterback change at the half. Kaden Lee set the tone early with this interception to start the half, and once Peyton Thorne was settled back into his position behind center, he was able to find the ever-popular target of Keandre Lambert-Smith. Not once, but twice this drive. His second completion led to the 10-yard touchdown, tying up the game. The Razorbacks had a powerful punch of their own with this 58-yard touchdown pass to Isaiah Satenga on 3rd and 19. The fourth interception of the night was thrown for the Tigers on this deflected pass, while Arkansas responded with their run game to set up a 43-yard field goal. Down 7-17, Peyton Thorne found Keandre Lambert-Smith again for a 67-yard touchdown, a season high for Lambert-Smith and putting the Tigers back within 3. Following this high was a 6-minute possession by the Razorbacks, leading to a touchdown that sealed their 24-14 win.
And they're signs that we can do some good things, but we cannot play as inconsistent as we are, and that's getting really, really frustrating.
For Eagle Eye TV, I'm Sophia Weber.
If you've been able to watch Auburn football through the first 4 weeks of the season, you know that the offense has been plagued with turnovers. Through 3 quarters today against Oklahoma, the offense looked like they had turned the page, but come the fourth quarter, a stagnant Auburn offense is what cost them the game. After Oklahoma scored on its opening drive, Auburn looked to find some juice of its own in the second quarter. Peyton Thorne found Dr. Dependable, Keandre Lambert-Smith, giving him 6 touchdowns already on the year. Add one more point to his 6 after he got jiggy. Come on now. The war-ready defense was running freshman Michael Hawkins Jr. out of the pocket all afternoon. This time, Austin Keys got to him. Momentum breeds momentum, and the best way to start is to start. Peyton Thorne, sir, how do you do? Malcolm Simmons lifts the Tigers to a 14-7 lead after that 48-yard bomb. Mr. Cardwell, you're right on, because the big dogs were dogs. From the OU 1-yard line, the lob, Thorne to Luke Deal, the 6-year senior showing some youth. 21-10, Auburn. After one 4th down stop and a missed field goal in the fourth quarter by the Tigers, Oklahoma began to air it out. Hawkins to J.J. Hester for 60 yards down to the Auburn 5, where the Sooners punched it in. After a failed 2-point conversion, Oklahoma trailed 21-16. That's when a bad dream turned into a disastrous reality for Auburn. Kip Lewis reads Thorne, rumbles 63 yards for the pick 6. Auburn down on the scoreboard, and the fans were down bad. Oklahoma would walk away with the win feeling as good as this dude, 27-21. Auburn had 191 more yards than the Sooners, but finished with less points on the board. Head coach Hugh Freeze addressed the scoring puzzle.
We've got to do something different to win these games when we're able to produce the yards we are. We're not producing the points that should come with that to assist the defense that's playing really, really hard and pretty well right now.
With the loss to the Sooners today, the Tigers moved to 2-3 on the season, but the road does not get any easier. Next week, Auburn and Hugh Freeze travel to Athens, Georgia to take on the Georgia Bulldogs in Sanford Stadium. From Jordan-Hare Stadium, I'm Vince Wolfram, Eagle Eye TV.
After 2 rough losses, the road didn't get any bit easier and included multiple ranked opponents. A trip to visit number 5 Georgia in Athens wasn't the ideal matchup at a time when Auburn was really trying to figure themselves out. That was a game Auburn eventually fell to the Bulldogs. And Sanford Stadium is by no means calm, and neither is Columbia, Missouri, where Auburn would travel the following Saturday to play number 19 Missouri. A road stint for the Tigers, as they were nagging and pulling for answers, was not the answer. Despite Cam Coleman having a great game, it was a late drive by Missouri that ended up winning them the ball game. As the road games continued, a trip to Lexington to play the bottom of the SEC Kentucky Wildcats offered Auburn faithful a glimpse of hope. Now, Jarquez Hunter had been that sense of hope for Auburn in years past, and sure enough, number 27 jumped on the touchdown train to Lex Vegas.
On Saturday night, the Auburn Tigers took on the Kentucky Wildcats in Lexington in a late-night matchup. This game between the Wildcats and the Tigers would be a battle of who would take the bottom of the SEC. Both teams have struggled in conference play, and after the first quarter, it looked like Auburn would be taking that throne. UK's offense was based around a 2-quarterback system. Brock Vandegrift, the UGA transfer, and Gavin Wimsatt. These two QBs led their team down the field to put UK up 10-0 after the end of the first quarter. Going into the second quarter, Auburn fans were quickly losing hope, but Keandre Lambert-Smith said, "Not so fast." KOS got on the receiving end of this pass from Payton Thorne to give Auburn their first 6 points. What was more interesting, however, was where the 7th point came from. Returning starting kicker from last year, Alex McPherson, made his season debut in this game against UK, and after his extra point and a field goal later in the second, this game was tied 10 points apiece at halftime. The second half of this game should really just be called the Jarquez Hunter Show, because that's exactly what it was. Hunter was on the end of both touchdowns for Auburn in the second half, and he finished this game with 278 rushing yards, the 4th most in Auburn history. The UK defense was simply unable to stop Hunter, and his dominance led Auburn to a 24-10 victory. Head coach Hugh Freeze had this to say after the game about how important this win was for his team.
Yeah, well, just to see them happy and their continuous hard work, to be gratified with the feeling of an SEC win on the road. You know, the hope is you come and win one on the road, that it grows your confidence for sure for the next time, because it's not going to get any easier.
Auburn comes out of Lexington with the win, and they'll be back at home next week versus Vanderbilt to face quite a tough team that's taking down some big dogs in the SEC. Eagle Eye TV, I'm Jack Corbett.
Finally, a win. Auburn faithful felt like they were somewhat back on track after dubbing the Wildcats, and were looking to stay on their winning ways. And the only thing standing in the way was the Vanderbilt Commodores. Coming into this one, Vandy had never won a game at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Ever. Diego Pavia was going to try and give the history books a rewrite.
In usual Tiger fashion, the game got out to a slow start with 5 back-to-back 3-and-outs, neither team being able to convert. But late in the first quarter, we saw some action as Pavia connected with A.J. Newberry on a deep right pass, giving Vanderbilt a 7-0 lead. And that score would close out the first. But headed into the second, the momentum was with the Tigers. After a few short Jarquez Hunter runs, Payton Thorne found Malcolm Simmons, caught at the Vandy 49 and brought to the Vandy 30-yard line. And on the very next play, Thorne was feeling the passing game, and he connected with Rivaldo Fairweather at the 20. Brought all the way to the end zone, reached for the pylon, bang! Touchdown Auburn, 7-7. That touchdown would close out the half, but headed into the third, the momentum was still with the Tigers. Vanderbilt started with the ball and quickly turned it over, which gave Auburn the opportunity to drive down all the way to attempt a 44-yard field goal. With McPherson listed as questionable for this week, Magoo stepped up to kick, which ended no good. That turnover on downs led to a Vanderbilt drive all the way to attempt a 31-yard field goal. Brock Taylor. Headed into the fourth quarter, things looked bleak for the Tigers. The Commodores went on a 14-play, 78-yard drive that consumed 8 minutes and 54 seconds of game clock. It looked like the Commodores would have to settle for 3 on that drive. But there's a flag, a leverage penalty on Auburn's Keldrick Falk, setting up the Commodores for a first down at the 4. And with that first down, Diego Pavia connected with Eli Stowers, giving Vanderbilt the 17-7 lead. Auburn trying to make this a one-score game, leading to a Towns-Magoo 52-yard field goal attempt. No good. Vanderbilt kneeled out the rest of the clock, leading to a 17-7 victory for the Commodores.
As the number of games left on the schedule dwindled down, Auburn hadn't lost its fight. Peyton Thorne, despite the outcomes of the games, was on course for one of the top passing seasons in the nation. As General Booty and ULM found their way to Jordan-Hare, it was pedal to the metal for Auburn, as this game was a game that this team needed to win.
Coming off a loss to Vandy, it seems all the Auburn Tigers needed for a win was a bye week, with freshman superstar Cam Coleman leading the pack.
Coleman put the Tigers' first score on the board with a 20-yard pass from Peyton Thorne in the first quarter. Things only heated up for the Tigers from there, with another passing touchdown for Coleman and Keandre Lambert-Smith finishing the first half with 24 unanswered points for Auburn. Stepping into the second half, ULM scored their first touchdown, but the Tigers just couldn't let that go and came back with this unreal catch by Coleman to increase their lead. Thorne continued to feed off the passing energy with a 40-yard bullet straight to Malcolm Simmons, closing out the third quarter 38-7. The first drive of the fourth quarter was where Walker White made his debut and finished out the game, setting up Damari Alston with a 7-yard run to score Auburn's final touchdown. And White wasn't the only one to make his Auburn debut this week, with walk-on kicker Ian Vacon starting for the Tigers, making both field goal attempts in the first and fourth. Senior running back Jarquez Hunter has already had an incredible season, but reached a major milestone for this game, crossing the 1,000-yard threshold, with 102 rushing yards in this game, bringing him to a total of 1,015 for his Auburn career.
And next week, the Auburn Tigers will be taking on the Texas A&M Aggies right here in Jordan-Hare for their last home game of the season. Sydney Babb, Eagle Eye TV, Auburn's news leader.
Senior night for this special group held plenty of weight. Jarquez Hunter, Luke Deal, Eugene Asante, and others were taking the field for the final time in the orange and blue. This game against ranked Texas A&M needed a Hollywood ending, right?
Number 15, Texas A&M, paying a visit to the Plains on senior night. Jarquez Hunter, Peyton Thorne, Eugene Asante, all seniors that had big impacts on this game. Hunter, he got the party started on the opening drive with this 1-yard score, and there wasn't much time to ravel about it because before long, there were more points on the board. This time brought to you by Thorne Coleman Incorporated. A 63-yard touchdown pass to put the Tigers up 14 points. And that is when the defense stepped up. Marcel Reed looks, fires, and gets picked off by Jaron Thompson. That, my friends, was a wake-up call for the Aggies because they wasted no time getting back into the game following that INT. Here, Reed finds Noah Thomas, who rifles through Auburn's miscue and trots on in for a 73-yard score off the slant route. Peyton Thorne, though, was not about to let his team down on senior night. He found his senior twin, Keandre Lambert-Smith, put the Tigers in position to get their star running back in the end zone once again. After 3 quarters, Auburn led 28-21. A&M controlled the majority of the fourth, surmounted a 31-28 lead with just minutes to play, but with Peyton Thorne's legs and the legs of redshirt freshman kicker Ian Vacon, Auburn would tie this game with just 5 seconds left in regulation to force overtime. Aggies, they got the ball first and cashed in. Reed connects with Ja'Day Walker, 12 yards on the grown man score. Auburn needed to match, and they did. Who else? Jarquez Hunter. 38's on the board. Second overtime trading field goals made it 41-all, and the third overtime was scoreless because of failed scoring opportunities. Auburn's ball to start the fourth overtime, playing with 2-point conversions at this point. Thorne finds KLS, touchdown Auburn. That score gave A&M one more chance to match. Here's the play. Reed gets the flicker back, looks at his wide receiver, and it's dropped. Ball game. Students rushing the field like it's 2013 again. Final from Auburn, Tigers 43, Aggies 41. Take a listen to who Coach Freeze had to credit with this win.
Well, thank you, Lord. And it's just, he's good in wins and losses, but it sure feels better when you win. And
what a way for this Auburn team to go out in Jordan-Hare this season. A big win for Coach Freeze. Next for the Tigers, they play in the Iron Bowl next Saturday against Alabama. From a very crowded Pat Dye Field, I'm Vince Wolfram, Eagle Eye TV.
What a game that was, and there's no better way to cap off the season than rivalry week, and it doesn't get much more legendary than the Iron Bowl. This time around, the game was played in Tuscaloosa, so Auburn traveled to T-Town to try to eliminate the Tide from playoff contention. And as the Auburn folks know all too well, anything can happen in a rivalry game.
The 2024 regular season capped off tonight with the 89th edition of the Iron Bowl. Number 13 Alabama coming in off a surprising loss in Norman to Oklahoma 24-3, and an Auburn team who has all the momentum off a big spirited win against Texas A&M at home. Now Auburn, they're trying to keep that underdog streak alive, and in this building, when Alabama is not coached by Nick Saban, the Tigers are undefeated.
The game started exactly how Auburn faithful would have hoped, with a turnover. Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe found freshman Ryan Williams, who coughed up the ball, and it ended up in the midst of Eugene Asante, a big one for Auburn, and in return, they tried to take advantage with an Ian Vacan field goal, but it missed. They let him hear it. First touchdown of the game came from the Tide. Milroe escaped for a 19-yard touchdown scramble and a crane kick for old time's sake. First quarter, Alabama led 7-0. Second quarter, though, it was a turnover-filled one for the Tide. Here, Milroe throws a souvenir to Caleb Wooden, and later a sack fumble that was recovered by Auburn's Jalen McLeod. Alabama began half number 2 with 2 big touchdown drives. Again, this score boost was generated by the legs of Jalen Milroe. Another scurry to the end zone. He was taking over this ball game, but for the first time all game, Auburn had an answer. On the last possession of a 10-play, 87-yard drive, Peyton Thorne found freshman Cam Coleman on this catch. You got mossed. After the Tigers scored on the 2-point conversion to follow, scoreboard read 28-14, Alabama leading. Auburn went into its bag of tricks to try to get back in the game, and it didn't work out all that well for him. Thorne with the lateral to Jarquez Hunter, throws it up to a contested Keandre Lambert-Smith, and the ball gets picked off. That just about did it. 28-14, final from Tuscaloosa.
With the loss today, Auburn's season is over. Hugh Freeze's team finished 2-6 in SEC play and 5-7 on the season. From Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, I'm Vince Wolfram, Eagle Eye TV.
At the end of the day, Auburn fans' hearts were gutted for the seniors that had dedicated so much energy to this program, which had had 3 different coaches during their time. At the end of the season, Auburn tied for 13th in the SEC, tied with Oklahoma with a 2-6 conference record. Overall, the Tigers finished 5-7. On the positive side, end of the season awards were released just after the Alabama game. And for Auburn fans, take pride in this one because named to the All-SEC teams were Jarquez Hunter to the first team and Keandre Lambert-Smith to the second team. 2 guys who had great years for the Tigers. Another list of accolades came from the newbies, the true freshmen All-Americans, both Cam Coleman, the wide receiver who had a breakout season, and Jay Crawford, who made a lot of big tackles for the Tigers, both made it onto that freshman list. Another freshman list, the All-SEC honors, packed with Auburn players. Wide receiver Cam Coleman, Jay Crawford, DeMarcus Riddick, and Braden Joyner all made appearances on that list. Now, with those players on the awards list comes a time of departure. And with the end of a season comes change. And for this Auburn football team, a lot of that change will be taking on the next level. As players leave the Plains and look to hear their names called in the NFL draft, excitement is certainly building. Now let's take a look at some of the players who are putting their names into the draft. I'm going to have Micah Farmer step in with me now. Micah, you've been our NFL draft guy since day one. Let's talk about some of these Tigers who are pursuing the next level and are going to try to make a name in the NFL draft.
Yes, sir. The headliner is Jarquez Hunter, obviously the first team All-SEC running back. I would expect him to go maybe as high as the third round, probably more like the fourth. Jalen McLeod also has some great upside. I think you can expect a lot from him at the next level. Peyton Thorne is draft eligible. Rivaldo Fairweather also draft eligible. Keandre Lambert-Smith, I think, also is going to be a great contributor. Then also you have Austin Keys and Jaron Thompson on this list. So good luck to all those Tigers in the NFL, as well as Luke Deal, Oscar Chapman, the legendary punter from down under, Jason Jones, Dorian Mausi, Philip Bleedy, Robert Smith, Griffin Speaks, and Isaiah Rakes.
Certainly plenty of Auburn guys testing the waters, hoping to see their names appear on the back of an NFL jersey on the next level. And some of them aren't done just quite yet. While Auburn wasn't one of the 12 teams in the college football playoff, they still have a chance to compete in some bowl games. The first of which is the Senior Bowl, which for seniors across the country is an awfully large accomplishment. And Auburn players that made the bowl, Jarquez Hunter, the running back, Jalen McLeod, and Eugene Asante, all appearing in the Senior Bowl, as well as the East-West Shrine Bowl, another fantastic bowl game with some Auburn talent in it. Keandre Lambert-Smith, the senior wide receiver, he's going to be catching footballs from Peyton Thorne, his college quarterback, in this bowl game, as well as tight end Rivaldo Fairweather. So 3 big offensive players for Auburn finding their way to the East-West Shrine Bowl. That is bound to be a cool feeling for those guys.
Yes, sir. Now let's take a look at the transfer portal. First, the departures for Auburn. Keontae Scott, who was on, like Vince mentioned at the start of the show, preseason SEC teams as a kick returner, is taking his talents to Houston. DB Caleb Wooden is off to Arkansas. Darren Reed Jr. is off to Mississippi State, as is TJ Lindsey, the 2 defensive linemen. He's off to Purdue. Laquan Robinson, safety, is off to Kansas. Gage Keys, back to the D-line, is joining Robinson at Kansas. Rock chalk indeed. Then Rod Elston is headed back to Jacksonville State, where he initially enrolled, but then is going back to. Micah Riley is off to Texas A&M. And now for the entire quarterback room. Hank Brown to Iowa, Walker White to Baylor, and Holden Garner to Texas State, as TJ Finley went as well. A lot of Auburn quarterbacks to Texas State. Camden Brown is headed to Georgia Southern. Sam Jackson V is on his second transfer now, came from Cal to Auburn, now off to Polk Country at Oklahoma State. Caleb Burton III heads to UConn. Offensive tackle Percy Lewis heads to Ole Miss. And interior offensive lineman E.J. Harris is off to Middle Tennessee State.
Now, although a lot of guys are transferring, I know Hugh Freeze has been putting in nonstop work to get guys to the Plains as well. So now let's take a look at the transfers who have arrived on the Plains since the season concluded. Starting off with the quarterback position. Micah, you talked about how the room got empty awfully quick.
It's filling back up
It's
now.
filling back up. Talk to me, man.
The headliner is Jackson Arnold, the quarterback from Oklahoma. Auburn fans will remember him from earlier in the season, but not as well as some would expect, as it was Michael Hawkins who started that game. But make no mistake, Arnold is talented, brings in a huge pedigree as a recruit. I think if you can really get him comfortable in this offense, I think he'll be set up and ready to go. Ashton Daniels comes in from Stanford, was a solid quarterback for the Cardinal this past season. I expect him to be behind Arnold. And then for depth, Tanner Bailey was also brought in from South Carolina. Now, there was big talk last year about the Freeze 4 coming in for the receiver room. This year, it's more transfers, and it's headlined by Eric Singleton Jr. of Georgia Tech, who is the #1 available transfer receiver in the portal, and he is joined by Wake Forest Horatio Fields. I would expect both of them to make an impact. Eric Singleton, bit under 6 foot, still built pretty solidly. I think this is your perfect Z across from the X that is Cam Coleman for the offense. Then Fields should make contributions, kind of think of him lined up similarly to Perry Thompson or Malcolm Simmons in the depth chart. Then earlier, we mentioned UConn already. Now they're giving a guy to us. It is Darrell Robinson, running back. A lot of people might not know that name because he played at UConn, but trust me, this is a solid running back that Auburn is getting. Maybe not a Mekhi Hughes or a Ahmad Hardy that was available in the portal, but this is still a very solid running back. You also bring in Maryland tight end Preston Howard. Then on the O-line, this is where Auburn fans should get excited. The offensive line struggled at times this past season, and what better guy to protect your new quarterback in Jackson Arnold and the Virginia Tech stalwart that is Xavier Chaplin. This guy is 6'7", 320, mountain of a man, is solid in the run game, and is an absolute force on that side in pass pro.
One of your favorite players
Yes.
in all of college
This
football.
is my favorite player that Auburn brought in the transfer portal. And then Mason Murphy is also an incredible offensive lineman from USC down there in SoCal.
Now that's only half of it because Hugh's bringing a lot more guys in as well. Xavier Atkins, the linebacker from LSU, which will be nice to replace Eugene Asante with, as a big hole in this Auburn defense forms with that loss. Chris Murray, the defensive lineman from Sam Houston State.
Love this guy too.
Joined by Dallas Walker, the fourth from Western Kentucky on that defensive line. And the secondary improved a lot as well.
It did. Tay Seymour brought in from Georgia Tech, not Georgia State, Eric Singleton's teammate, and this is a guy who's a great box safety, can make plays there. Then my transfer portal crush, I was telling Vince about this guy earlier, is Rayon Strader from Miami of Ohio. He is a lengthy corner. He can make plays. I think he's going to do work across from Jay Crawford for the Tigers. I love that pickup. Connor Gibbs at kicker from Southern Miss. And then finally Hudson Calk, a punter brought in from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, those are the transfer guys coming from other schools to the Plains of Auburn. And I know if you were at the Tennessee basketball game, you probably saw a lot of these guys on the floor at halftime. A lot of new freshmen coming to Auburn this season, and none more exciting than five-star quarterback Deuce Knight and running back Alvin Henderson. Two guys to certainly keep an eye on.
Yes, if you like stats, go look up Alvin Henderson's high school stats because they are ridiculous. Also coming in is Jared Smith and Malik Autry on the D-line, two highly touted prospects. Donovan Starr, another great corner. I love how Hugh Freeze is recruited in the secondary, both through freshman and the transfer portal in his time here. Staying on the defensive side, Elijah Melendez, Bryce Diaz, both at linebacker, as well as Keldrick Falk's younger brother, JJ, at linebacker as well. A lot of talent in that linebacker room. Then back at safety, Anquan Fagans is a stud, one of the top-rated safeties in the country, and Eric Winters is no slouch either at that spot. Moving back up front to the D-line, Antonio Coleman, Jordan Crawford, and Darian Smith have all been brought in. They will be solid players as well. And then jumping back once again to the secondary, this time at corner, we have Devin Williams and Blake Bobble Woodby at corner. And let me tell you, Blake is all-name team already coming in. I love that name. Yes. Now let's bounce back over to the offense. And you thought we were done with the receiver room?
Not so fast.
Let's bring in Sam Turner, Duke Smith, Eric Smith, and then at the tight end position, Hollis Davidson III and Ryan Gee. A lot of talent there in that receiving corps.
In the absence of Luke Deal, too, especially.
And
Luke
Micah
and
Riley.
Rivaldo Fairweather, seeing some tight ends on the roster is certainly a good thing.
Yes. Then on the offensive line, Ty Buster has been brought in, another all-name team contender right there. Broderick Scholl, and then Cale Ellis on the offensive line, as well as Jacoby Ward, and then finally at punter, John McGuire.
Yeah, certainly a lot of great names coming to the Plains from the freshman class. No doubt about that. Now, in some other news, sad news for the Auburn football program. In December of 2024, Auburn football lost a member of its team that was influential beyond compare. Former Auburn football player and longtime team chaplain Reverend Chet Williams passed away on December 16th. Reverend Williams made a profound impact on everyone he encountered, players, coaches, and community members during his 26 years with the Auburn football program. He was often referred to as a hard-fighting soldier and wore that title with honor. From myself and all of Eagle Eye TV, we are sending thoughts and prayers to the Williams family. Rest easy, Brother Chet. You will be so dearly missed. Now, we talked about the freshmen. There was also plenty of movement on the staff as well. Hugh Freeze has been working, getting his guys in the room, and so let's look at the coaching departures here. We'll start with Charles Kelly. He was the co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach last year at Auburn and is now the head coach at Jacksonville State.
Yeah, that is a big loss for Auburn. This guy was an absolute guru on the defensive side. I think you're going to miss him for sure, and Jacksonville State got a good one. And still on the defensive side, Josh Aldridge was the defensive edge coach for Auburn, and he is now the defensive coordinator at Eastern Carolina for the Pirates. I think he should make a positive impact there as well.
And we'll miss Oscar Chapman from the land down under, but I guess his coach got a little bit replaced as well. We're looking at Tanner Burns. He was the special teams coordinator for Auburn and is now the associate head coach, special teams coordinator, and defensive assistant following Holden Gerner at Texas State.
Yes.
Similar to the players in the transfer portal, some guys leave and new guys come in. It's the same thing with the staff, and Hugh Freeze has been on nonstop working to try to get his coaching staff filled out, and it started with TJ Rushing.
It did indeed. Rushing was a special assistant to the head coach at Auburn last year. This year, he will be moving into the role of safeties coach for the Tigers.
Next best thing, Chad Lunsford. He is now the special teams coordinator at Auburn, and before that, he wore a lot of hats. He was the assistant head coach, special teams coordinator, and tight ends coach at FAU. That's a lot of positions there, as well as he was the interim head coach for FAU's last 2 games this season after their head coach left the position.
Yes, then finally, Rock Bellantoni was the defensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic, so another FAU guy, and he will this year be the outside linebackers coach for Auburn.
FAU to AU is kind of sounding like a pipeline deal here.
It is indeed. We send guys to Texas State, and then we bring them in from FAU. That's how it works.
Seriously, and I know at the beginning of the show we talked about the preseason predictions for the 2024 team, and now we're all the way caught up to the point where we're about to do that again for 2025 as well. So, Micah, 2025 Auburn Tigers, it's a lot different than 2024. So, off the rip, what do you kind of expect from this Auburn Tigers team?
I would say about what I'm feeling is 7-5, 8-4 from this team. I think a lot of it depends on Jackson Arnold. If you get the Jackson Arnold that you saw in his first couple games at OU and as a recruit, I honestly think the ceiling is 9-3. But if you get the Jackson Arnold you saw at times last year when he was throwing to Walmart workers, when all of Oklahoma's receiving core was hurt, I think this team could honestly have a floor as low as 5-7 once again. So this team will go as Jackson Arnold goes. Like I said, though, I expect it to be around that 7-5, 8-4 area.
I love it. Auburn fans, take note, because this is the guy you should be listening to. The 2024 Auburn football season was quite the show, but it wouldn't be the same without the students and the audience here at Eagle Eye TV. So shout out to the Auburn family for showing up. Wins, losses, didn't matter. The Auburn fans, they made their voices heard all season long. And we expect nothing less from the football jungle as we look forward to 2025 and close the 2024 chapter of this Auburn football yearbook. This has been the Eagle Eye TV Sports 2024 Auburn football special. My name is Vince Wolfram.
I'm Micah Farmer.
And we will see you on April 12th in Jordan-Hare Stadium for A-Day. Good night and War Eagle.
War Eagle.